Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we are going to talk with someone who is very successful with his business, which is growing by leaps and bounds all the time. And so please join me in welcoming Bryce Henson to our program today. Welcome, Bryce. How are you doing today?
Deb, I am fantastic. Love your energy. Super excited to be on the show. Thanks so much for having me.
Perfect. And as we're recording this, it's the end of the day on Friday. So, we're ready to rock it for the weekend, right?
Yep. We got to let loose a little bit.
I know. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will jump into this. So Bryce Henson is the CEO of Fit Body Boot Camp, the world's fastest growing fitness boot camp franchise. Having nearly 20 years of fitness business experience and owning his own Fit Body location, his passion is spreading fitness to the world through business coaching. Through Fit Body Boot Camps, that's tricky to say, Fit Body Boot Camps worldwide growth, Bryce has overseen hundreds of gyms successfully launched throughout North America. Most importantly, he helps his franchise partners grow their profits while helping to offset the obesity epidemic, which is, of course, so important to be doing. He enjoys world travel and is a fitness expert, coach, author, and inspirational leader. So again, Bryce, welcome.
Deb, thank you so much. You made me sound larger than life. I'm just a regular guy that loves fitness and here to chat with you. So very excited to dig in.
I love it. We are going to have so much fun. So, I always like knowing from my guests how it is that they got to where they are today. So how did you discover that this is your passion in life, at least for right now?
Yeah, it's evolution, but we talked a little bit offline, originally from the South, but I moved to Michigan for high school and college. And I wasn't a fit guy by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, fast food and specifically Taco Bell was a staple on my diet for years and years, primarily for two reasons. Number one, my family comes from humble beginnings for first world standards. So we used to run out of money before we used to run out of a month. And fast food's at least a more affordable option on the front end. It has its consequences in the back end. But aside from that, also the Midwest is an amazing place, salt of the earth people. But I think one thing that we can agree on, not the fitness capital of the world. So that was my environment, growing up. But then I graduated, put myself through school. I went to Michigan State. And after I graduated, I got an internship, which turned into a sales gig. And I moved out to California, 3,000 miles from home. I was excited to be in LA, the palm trees, the blue skies, the beaches. But also, LA could be the plastic capital of the world when you're 21 years young. You don't have a friend connection. You have very little professional skills to offer the world. You're not fit. I certainly didn't have enthusiasm and excitement and confidence, which I do now. But really, when you break it down, Deb, I just didn't have fitness in my life. And candidly, I couldn't say that I was obese. However, I was 20 pounds overweight, very little muscle on my body, and lived that way for a couple of years after my move. But I guess I'll finish here at the foundation of how I got fit. And a fortuitous situation happened. One of my best friends from college moved out west and we decided to live together. And his name was Adam. He was my first fitness mentor. And after a couple of months, I finally mustered up enough courage to say, Adam, can you teach me a little about this fitness thing? And he turned to me and said, Bryce, I thought you'd never ask.
He was waiting, but he was smart enough to know not to try to force it onto you.
That is it, like a good coach as well and a good mentor. And after he said that, the other amazing thing he said, he's like, Bryce, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. I will help you, but I need you to commit for 90 days that you're going to do what I want you to do. You're going to train how I want you to train. You're going to eat how I want you to eat. And then after the 90 days, if this is not for you, no problem. But if it is, then your life will change and off we go. And I'm so glad he made me commit to that 90 days, because let's face it, whether you're starting a new business or a new fitness regimen or anything new in life, the initial point is always challenging. And I remember those first few weeks, I couldn't even walk barely. I couldn't even sit on the toilet because I was so sore.
Because we all know no pain, no gain.
Especially if you hadn't worked out rigorously for a long time previously. So, but I put one foot in front of the other. I followed his coaching, and 1 week turned to two to three. And before you know it, after the 90 days, was I Arnold Schwarzenegger looking physique? No. However, in the famous words of Tony Robbins, progress equals motivation. And within 90 days, I saw some progress. I stayed it created even more motivation. And I ended up training with him for a period of about 2 years, but really 6 months hyper-focused. I dropped 20 pounds of body fat, put on 20 pounds of lean muscle. But way more importantly, it changed my life. It gave me more energy and confidence, enthusiasm. In fact, I was in the sales career or sales industry, and I went from the least performing sales rep in the company all the way to the highest performing sales rep of the company, Deb. And one thing changed, and one thing only, and it was my fitness. And that gave me so much confidence. And that really was what laid the foundation for me to be very enthusiastic and excited about the industry and wanted me to explore it professionally.
Okay. So when did you get into the fitness industry?
So this transformation story I just shared with you was in early 2007. So the time we're recording, can't even believe, well over a decade and a half ago. And I trained and started living a healthy and fit life for the better part of a few years. And in 2010, I will never forget, someone walked up to me at the gym. This is after, being fit for a few years. And he said, "Hey, I want to introduce myself to you. I see how you train. I'm curious how you eat. You're in great shape. I would love to learn from you." And Deb, that was the first time a light bulb went in my mind that, oh, shoot, maybe I can give this gift of fitness back to others. And that was, I guess, what led me to become a certified personal trainer. And then a couple of years later, I found the Fit Body Bootcamp model as a franchise. And while I'm the CEO of the business, I'm not the founder. The founder is a gentleman named Bedros Keuilian, who's a longtime dear friend. He's a business coach and mentor, and also a business partner of mine to this day. And I started learning a little bit about this franchise called Fit Body. And that was when I kind of put things in motion, which eventually I did the scariest thing I possibly could do. But in the summer of 2012, after doing my diligence and research and passing the application process, I put my life savings to this little dream of opening a fitness studio. And that's what really catapulted my career within the fitness space professionally.
Right. And you said something that I think is so incredibly important. And that is, the relationship of the coach or the mentor and the mentee. It's kind of like, somebody who, obviously you deal with people who overeat, but it's also people maybe who drink too much until they want to stop. They're not going to stop. And, you can coach them you yell at them, you do all of that, but that doesn't get them going. It might get them to do something, short term. But when you serve more as that mentor and really helping them guide through it, and as you said, decide to do it on their own, that's when the change is going to happen.
Ooh, that is spoken like a true coach, Deb. And I use this framework that I think about good coaching and good mentorship with that mentee and mentor relationship. And it's the difference between a lighthouse and a tugboat. And both the lighthouse and the tugboat, the objective is to get ships away from the harbor into the shore safely. But a tugboat is there pushing and grunting and groaning and just trying to force that, where the lighthouse is standing proud with, lighting beams and really just being the example, and also the visibility and the light. So that way boats can see and enter into the harbor. And I think that's a really great analogy for a good coach and a good mentor within that relationship.
Right. Yeah. And with the tug, a lot of times you have no choice. You're pushed where they want to push you, which is, sometimes not good. But with the lighthouse, you are choosing to do this or not do this.
And that's where the long-term sustainability is, because, to your point, yes, we offer fitness and fat loss results in the company that I work, Fit Body Bootcamp, that I support. But at the end of the day, it's not about getting a 90-day result and saying, okay, great, I dropped 15, 20 pounds. I look and feel better. That's awesome. Congrats. But this is about a long-term sustainable approach. So to your
Otherwise,
point,
they're going to go back to those bad habits.
Totally. And using that analogy, that tugboat, yeah, you can force someone to change for 90 days, but eventually, if you're not just being there, the lighthouse, that guide, and if they don't have buy-in in that transformation journey, then they're going to go back, to your point.
Right. And it doesn't matter what it is. The analogy is the same, whether it's business, whether it's learning, any of those things, we have to want to do it. And I think one of the really important things is funny. We were talking a little bit of college sports right before we started. And, I think it's so important that people do have coaches. We try and go on our own, and sometimes, sure, somebody gets lucky and they're successful. But, when you look at even the superstars, Michael Jordan had coaches. I'm from Colorado. Peyton Manning and John Elway had coaches. And they had a variety of them. They had fitness coaches, they had health coaches, they had, obviously quarterback coaches and things like that. But you always see that when someone is incredibly successful, they have coaches. And I think that's so important to remember if you're in business, is who can you find to support you?
Amen to that. And to even unpack that a little further from my lens, they're so important for two primary reasons. Number one, a coach gives you a blueprint, a guide to follow. Again, using that lighthouse analogy, which is really important. So it provides us a service as a guide. The second thing that a coach does, it holds you accountable, because let's face it, Deb, and if you're listening to this or watching this, know this to be true. And this is factory installed in human nature. As humans, we are more likely to disappoint ourselves than we are to disappoint others.
Oh yeah. We just go on to something else, but we don't want to tell somebody, especially somebody we admire and respect, I screwed up.
And that's that. I mean, there's many other value points, but when I look at coaching for that exact reason, and that's an incredible example of professional sport athletes, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, whomever the case may be, we all need coaches to get better. And I couldn't be more aligned.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the superstars really do have coaches, folks. I mean, Tiger Woods talks about his coaches all the time. And I think the important thing about the coach and mentor, however it is they are looking at us with hopefully an unbiased view, and we don't like to admit that we have flaws, that we have things that, aren't perfect. And either that or we admit it and we're so hard on ourselves that then we can't overcome it. And it's the role of the coach to say, okay, this needs work. What are we going to do?
Totally.
Okay, we're done. No more program.
Mic is dropped, Deb. Mic is dropped.
I love it. Well, I mentioned that you are the CEO of Fit Body Boot Camp, and it is a franchise. So how many do you have as of the recording?
So we have a few hundred in North America. Okay. We expanded quite a bit, as you would imagine. COVID, it was not kind, but thankfully, the last year and a half, and we're shooting this in mid 2023. The last 18 months has been a big rebound, which has been really inspiring.
Everybody got fat. Let's just, and really develop bad habits.
That is true. When I was in freshman in college, they called it the freshman 15. You gained 15 pounds. Well, this was not even the COVID 15. It was probably double or triple that, as we've seen.
Originally they called it the COVID 19, right? And then we went past 19.
We blew way past 19. Yeah, I actually, interestingly enough, Deb, I haven't heard of the COVID-19, but that is something I'm going to take with me. Thank you.
I had several people that have said, "Oh, I got to get rid of this COVID-19," and at first I was like, "What?" And then I realized they meant, and of course we were stuck at home. We couldn't go out, and whether you were used to going to a gym or just going for walks and things like that. I mean, they wouldn't let us on the trail behind our house. It was the weirdest thing, they, and wow. Right darn, they patrolled it. And so, and when you're stuck at home, and especially if things aren't going well, you eat. And, and you don't eat well, that's the other thing. And so it was just kind of natural that during COVID, people put on 1, 2, 20, 30 extra pounds.
Totally. And also too, I mean, not only the seclusion and, the fact of not being able to do certain activities, but also too, I mean, I think it's fair to say, especially in the first 6 months or so, it was a very stressful time. There was just a lot of unknowns.
So we had stress eating.
Totally. You had stress to that. People want to cope, and, whether it's food or whether it's drugs, alcohol. I mean, there's a lot of issues that have, came up unfortunately because of that. But thankfully, the good news is there's light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of lighthouse analogies today, but ultimately we are on the right path. And what we've seen is, and what we've seen over the last 18 months, and what I hope to be true moving forward. It's just a big wake-up call for people's health, because I think two things can be true. One, COVID was a real issue that affected a lot of people negatively. But the other issue that was also very true is it affected the people, aside from elderly and the people that had, sacrificed immune systems, but it affected the beast the worst, which, people that need like a wake-up call to take care of themselves, to live a better, life and be healthier and eat more nutritious food. So what we've seen over the last 18 months is our clientele across North America has responded. And my hope is that as long as we continue to be the inspiration, to be the lighthouse, to be able to, be the light as we move forward, that trend will continue. Because at the time of this recording, it's very scary, Deb, which I'm really passionate about. Nearly 50%, nearly 50% of our population in North America, and specifically in the US, is statistically obese. And there's a lot of issues with that. Number one, just from the physicality, the extra health, care costs that are involved. And think about it, and this is also why it affected people so badly, is that when you're already, have more weight on your body and your organs are having to work harder just to stay at equilibrium. So whether it's COVID or whatever comes in your way, it's more challenging for your body.
Cold. I mean, it's just harder to get over a cold, let alone something catastrophic.
Totally. And then the second aspect of play is the mental health. And this has been a big buzzword over the last, few years, but, anxiety and pressure, depression, big pharma. I mean, there's serious complications, when people, put on extra weight, they start feeling depressed, and it can be a cycle. So my hope in my job, along with my incredible team of, team here at our headquarters in Southern California, in addition to our hundreds of franchise partners throughout North America, is that we're on a mission serving our communities and getting our health back in check.
Right. And you mentioned big pharma. I think we've all seen a lot of the things that have been coming out that, there's the quick weight loss, and nothing is quick, and we've all seen that, even if it's just like you get the flu, right? And things are going through you pretty quickly. And so you lose a lot of water weight, and you think, wow, hey, that was pretty cool. I lost 5-10 pounds. Well, it was water weight, and you're going to gain it right back. And if anything, you might gain more. And so I think we always need to be careful about the quick fixes. It has got to be this thing, as you said, where it's for the rest of your life.
Amen to that. And that's what, you're so correct, Deb. And earlier in the conversation, I talked about the long-term sustainability, more than just 90 days a quick fix. This is a lifestyle. And this is really my challenge to our audience and our population, our country, and even world, because, North America, I know you have a big international audience as well. North America, we're guilty and probably one of the worst,
I live in the South.
Even worse than the Southeast and Midwest.
Lots of very good fried foods.
Totally. But even it's interesting, about 13 years ago in 2010, I decided to move to a little island in the south of Brazil for 2 years. I ended up meeting my wife, a magical experience, ended up learning a language fluently. It was just an incredibly enriching experience in my life. And even Brazil, which is now a developing country, they're also, feeling the effects of obesity, which if you take a look at it though, there's something to be grateful for. This is actually a problem of abundance, because for the vast majority of
when
human
you're
history,
making more, then you eat more.
And for the vast majority of human history, when you talk about food and the challenges of food, it was typically their lack thereof. Like people, you had a higher probability of dying from starvation. I mean, if you would have talked to populations a few hundred years ago, and you would communicate that we actually now have a problem with people overeating, moving less, and that's causing issues. Like if someone 500 years ago was transported today, they would think you're crazy.
Oh, right.
But so it's still a problem we need to work with, but it's a problem of abundance. But it's also happening throughout the world as the entire world continues to get wealthier. Right. So whether you're listening to this in North America or in Europe or whatever the case may be, there's a big call to action. Take care of you. When you take care of you, when you fill your cup first, then you have room to your cup can overflow and you can help and support your loved ones, your family, your community.
Right. Yeah. When you're healthier, you are better able to help those around you. And it's interesting because along with that abundance has come the fact that, we are no longer, for the most part here, an industrial society with going out and farming and doing a lot of things like that. We sit our little heinies down in a chair for a good part of our day, right? And I think it may even be worse after COVID because for so many people who are home based, we get up, we sit, and, we might get up at lunch, and at least, excuse me, when we were in offices, you got up and toddled around the office a little bit. It's funny. I have a new, it's not new anymore. I guess I can't call it new. It's about 6 years old. One of the iWatches, and it, bless its little heart. See, I do live in the South. Bless its little, every hour it says stand, and of course, what do I do? Yeah, whatever. But it really is trying to get, and it wants me to get up for 60 seconds. 60 seconds, and I'm like, eh.
That's the benchmark, 60 seconds. But that just goes to show a lot about human nature.
Oh yeah. And it's funny because I've been doing a fundraiser for this month for the American Cancer Society, and you walk your dog, which is always very entertaining that they do this thing in the summer, especially here in the South. But you were supposed to do 25 miles in 30 days. We hit ours, several days ago. So yay, woohoo. And of course, we're continuing.
Congrats.
But, it's like, it sounds really funny because it's 25 miles in 30 days. So that's less than a mile a day. And many people who have absolutely nothing wrong with them, aside from, sheer laziness, go, oh, I can't do that. And to me, now I do have some issues. And so it's one of the things is, when I go up and down the stairs, things don't go right. But just doing a mile and a half every day is so good for us. And of course the trick is, as it's not, let's do, a mile to start with. It's let's go to the end of the block and come back. And then when I read other people's posts, there was somebody that posted today and said, well, I hit 100 miles today. And I'm like, what do you do? Do you do you not work?
That there's a lot of truth to that. That takes a lot of time, effort, discipline. So hats off. But that is so true, Deb. And I'm going to go in a coaching moment here because being in the industry for a long period of time, and this also speaks to human nature. Somehow human nature, we feel that we haven't worked out since high school or maybe ever. We've etten fast food 7 days a week, and then New Year's rolls around and we just feel
we
like
make that resolution, right? We're going to stop this, stop that. And
then start, we're going to go from cold turkey, never working out to, trying to run 3 or 4 miles a day or go to the gym 7 days a week. And that just doesn't happen. That's short-term sustainable. And then a week or 10 days of that. And you're like, okay, that's not, sustainable.
Right. So I have to have a Big Mac.
Totally. And then all of a sudden the pendulum swings again. So I think the biggest piece of coaching advice, is if you're listening to this and you need to make a change, to your point, instead of thinking, I need to start working out 7 days a week tomorrow and do 3-hour workouts and all of a sudden never touch fast food again. How about you do this? Let's invest and let's commit to 3 times a week going for a walk for 20 minutes. Right. Like if we can do that, then after a month of that, you're like, okay, great. I can do 4 times a week and maybe walk for 25 minutes or up to 30 minutes. And you can just build, consistency compounds. And I think that's a great message. And also too, a liberating message for your audience and our audience who knows they need to change, wants to be a better version of themselves, but also feels overwhelmed. Like, oh, I can never do this. Right. And I'll finish the story with the Anadolu story. As much as I'm a fit guy, I'm really proud of that. It also served me well from just a health and mental perspective. Embarrassed to say, flexibility is the weakest part of my fitness. I am not a flexible guy.
Interesting.
So I've been trying to quote unquote or I've been putting my mind to it for quite some time. And I realized recently, you know what? and we got a sauna at my house, which is really nice recently. And I was like, there's no way all of a sudden I'm going to go from zero flexibility to all of a sudden be the yogi doing handstands. That's probably just not going to happen within a short period of time. But what I can do is I need to focus on one muscle area, which is my quads.
Okay.
So if I stretch my quads, because I've been receiving some lower back pain, I'm going to stretch them for 7 minutes, 3 times a week.
Right.
For 2 weeks. Then I got to 8 minutes. Then I got to 9 minutes. Now at the end of the month, now I'm doing 10 minutes 4 times a week.
Right.
And when July hits, well, I'm going to start stretching my calves. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's not like all of a sudden I went from no flexibility to yoga doing handstands, but what I feel very confident already just in 30 short days, I've seen a big improvement. And my goal, Deb, is that over a 6-month and 12-month period, I'll be able to touch my toes and I'll have some flexibility and remove my back pain and some lower body pain. And I think that's just a great, metaphor and analogy, which I want to, share on today.
Right. And it is so true that, we have these aches, these pains, and I'm probably old enough to be your mother. And as we age, we really get to where, we're not going to do that. Okay. So again, we're not wanting to be the yogi. We're wanting to be able to scratch our back or bend down and pick something up off the ground. And so it's whatever age level you're at, whatever physical level you're at, you can be doing these things. The key is, as we said, just don't overdo, because when you overdo, you can cause all sorts of problems. I mean, it's one thing to have your muscles hurt, but if you do something that causes injury, then you're not going to be able to work out for a while, right? So, but that's again where a coach helps, because they're going to tell you, no, you're not going to do this every day for a half an hour. You're going to do this every other day for 10 minutes. And I think that's probably why so many people fail at it when they do this on their own, whatever it is, because
whatever it is.
Yeah, they don't understand the goals. And so they set unreasonable goals. And we do that in business too. We have this thing, called a BHAG. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but yes,
of course,
yes, the BHAGs. So the big, hairy, audacious goal. And it's one thing to say, okay, you've got, several hundred locations. So it's one thing to say you want 500 locations in the next 5 years. That might be a BHAG. But you're also going to keep in mind what we need to do to get there. And, but if you were saying, okay, we want 1,000 locations in a year, that's not doable. So then when you can't make it, you get, all upset.
Frustrated, throw your hands in the air, and then you quit.
Right.
And Deb, I'm so glad you brought this up. It's this concept, this analogy of learning and progressing and setting not BHAG goals. I like to set the goals in our organization as stretch goals. They're realistic. They're
but
realistic.
A little much.
But a little
extra.
Just to stretch you, just to push you. And, we're talking about fitness, but, I'm also a big business guy, and this applies to, business and relationships and life. And if you want to learn sales, if you want to learn marketing, if you want to learn accounting, I mean, this applies to every single modality in your life, as taking a step ladder approach. And when you do that, when you focus on the long term and make it sustainable, that's been a huge secret sauce for me, which I want to impart on your audience today.
Right. And it's so important to actually have those goals. I mean, that's the other thing is people are like, well, I'm just going to work out. I'm, all those various things. Well, it's kind of like getting in your car and saying, Siri, take me somewhere. Now Siri might have fun with that. Who knows? I think that she really does have a good time getting me lost. But you have to have goals in order to know if you're getting there, and if and did you meet those goals? Because then you go back, okay, if we didn't meet it, why? If we met it sooner than we thought, why? Maybe it wasn't enough of a stretch, as you were saying. So it's so important to have those goals. But again, have them be realistic goals, folks.
Amen to that. Amen. Deb, you are just a pleasure. I'm just really enjoying this.
We're having so much fun. I love it. I love it.
Not only from the content, not only the knowledge bombs, the fitness, the business, but also just to your point, having fun, some laughs in the process. So appreciate you.
And let's be honest, that's the way we should be with our business. Now, there are things we don't like, right? I tell people, I don't like to invoice. Now I need to invoice, but so there are things that we do that we don't like. But I feel really bad when people do things, they've got their business, or they're an employee and they just hate what they're doing. I mentioned in the pre-program that I'm from originally from Colorado.
Right.
And 2 weeks ago, the Denver Nuggets did the thing. The Denver Nuggets won the NBA
They
championship. They won. Yay!
This is so embarrassing. I used to be such a sports fan.
They won, and that was the first
congrats.
time ever. They never even made it to the finals, obviously, let alone win. And so their big primary player, big dude, great big dude. His first name is Nikola, and it's Djokovic, I think.
Djokovic,
Yes. So he's Serbian, so I can't say it right. But I remember afterwards, one of the things that I loved about him through the whole thing, I mean, he's a superstar. He is a true superstar, but he is one of the most humble superstars. People would say, "Oh my God, you had this fantastic game. You had your, 89th triple double or whatever," and he would say, "No, it's the other players. It's because of that." And so he always was deflecting that. But he did acknowledge that he was the leader, but it was everybody else around him. But right after, the champagne's going and all this stuff, and somebody said something to him about, playing and doing all of that. And he said, "It's a job." And I felt bad because I thought, oh my gosh, this man just reached the pinnacle of his sport. And he went, "It's a job." And I did, it was, and I'm not sure now, he has changed a bit since then, because one of the other things that was so funny, they said, now there's going to be a big parade. And he went, "Oh, but I have to be in Serbia. I'm doing something over there with all of this stuff." Well, he liked the parade. And what he said about the parade, we can't repeat because he used lots of really colorful language, but he wanted it to go on. But I don't think he understood the concept of it. But yeah, I think that's such a bad thing. And that comes back to coaching and mentoring and all of those things. When we're just thinking it's a job. Now, there are times where we have to have just the job. We need to make the money. We need to pay the bills. But we need to have that passion and that laughter and that fun with it, or it really is just the job.
Ooh, amen to that.
I told you I'd go squirrel on occasion.
I love it. But that's why, it served me so well in my career, is finding something that I'm passionate about, that it's more of a mission-based calling than it is just punching a time clock. And I think, for me, when I look back, taking responsibility, that creates meaning in life, and doing something that you really believe in and passionate about, and far more than just woo-woo, oh, you got to be passionate. And no, like, life is challenging. Things are tough. And when you have a passion, you're able to overcome the dark days. You're able to push through, and you're also able to find levity, in the tough times, and, have a more of an enjoyable experience, even when things get tough.
Right. And one of the things that is good about a franchise is that you have support, you have guidance, and obviously each one is very different as to how much oversight they provide, and other things. But you also kind of have those built-in coaches. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, such a great question. And when I joined the Fit Body Bootcamp family and franchise, I joined as a franchise partner. And, as we talked about earlier, and I'll just give you some anecdotal experience. The reason I did is I went through that, transformative experience with my own fitness. I also, because of my fitness, changing, I became a very strong and talented salesperson. So I learned that skill, but I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to run fulfillment. I didn't know how to run operations in HR, because when I was working for my sales gig,
you didn't have to do that.
No, the phone would ring, and my job was to take that phone call and make them a client. But then when you're the business owner, your job is certainly to take the phone, pick up the phone and convert that client. But your also job is to make the phone ring, then fulfill, then do the whole business operation. So I really was attracted to the kind of mindset that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, from a coaching and guidance perspective. So that was, for me, really big in the process. But then to take that even a step further, one of the things that I noticed, and, we have a very strong founder who's very, very well known in the fitness industry. His name's Bedros Keuilian, who's, a dear friend and mentor of mine, and also business partner. One of the things that, he leaned on me and why he brought me into the brand in 2018 at the franchisor level is kind of had that boots on the ground experience, the operational experience of being in the trenches for 6 years. And we had a strong operations and finance team. But one thing I noticed was we didn't have business coaches that had fit body experience, and some had entrepreneur experience and whatnot. But I think actually it's a point of differentiation, because this is actually not or very common throughout the franchising space, where they have a business blueprint and whatnot, but the coaches, if you will, don't have actual experience operating that particular modality. So I turned to our founder at the time and I said, "Hey, Bedros, who better to coach our owners than our most successful franchise partners who are owners themselves?" And that was the birth of our coaching and profitability team. And we went on a unique model where we've recruited then, 6 of our most successful franchise partners as owners of their own locations, but now they're on the headquarters team to be able to provide coaching and guidance to our franchise partners. And of course, new franchise partners need the most guidance and help, just like, when you're a baby, you need to be, taken care of by your parents, but then you can start to crawl and then you can start to walk, and you still need your parent there to be able to be that guide, but the relationship changes a little bit. And I think that's what we found a really, really sweet spot, from a coaching perspective, to enable our franchise partners to be super successful, because our business coaches, to your point earlier, have that, institutional knowledge of being owners within our brand. So it's worked out really well.
So are there tips that people who are independent business people, are there things that they can learn from franchises?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think, in the coaching realm, because as a quote unquote client back in early 2007, a fitness client, if you will, I looked for my first fitness coach. Then I found a business coach in this form of our founder, but also to the brand. I think for me, coaching is really important. So whether you're in or outside of a franchise, it's really important still to find a guide. And we talked a little bit about earlier, finding a guide that has been where you want to go, has been to that destination. And for me, I use the language framework. So my wife, for example, I moved to Brazil, as I shared with you, and she speaks fluent English, but she also, her first language is Brazilian Portuguese. And Deb, if you, your audience, are trying to learn Brazilian Portuguese, it's probably a really, really, really good idea for you to consult her, because that's her native language. Okay. That's what her expertise is. But if you were to ask her, "Hey, can you teach me Mandarin Chinese?" As much as I love my wife, she's beautiful, she's knowledgeable, she's bilingual.
She's going to tell you no.
It's probably not a good idea to consult her for Mandarin Chinese, because she doesn't speak it. And I think that's a good lesson, for any entrepreneurs listening to this. Coaching is very valuable. And if you can find someone who's been where you want to go, that is super valuable. But also beware of the potholes. You wouldn't ask my wife to learn Mandarin Chinese, because that would make no sense. Just like you shouldn't ask, and when I say you, meaning your audience, someone for business or coaching advice who hasn't gone where you want to go. And what I've seen many times, especially young entrepreneurs in our model, they'll latch on to the support of our model, but then they'll also, want to gain some expertise of family or friends. Sometimes, great people who have the best intentions, but sometimes their parents or spouses or, uncle,
they
whatnot,
haven't been there.
They haven't been there. And sometimes they get business advice from their family or friends that haven't been there. And that could also be a recipe for disaster. So I think it's really important that that you look for, continue to expand your network, that you listen to awesome shows like this and podcasts that are going to inspire you, that will tap you into different business skill sets. You go to, live person events and really connect and network and build your network, because that's really important. And then you also look for coaches that can guide you in this specific area. And you don't have to get a general business coach as example. Say you're listening to this and you're like, I'm really strong in sales, I'm really strong in marketing, but operations, I just don't have my handle on. Then go find someone who has operational experience, who's an expert, and you can get very niche to bring that person in. And maybe you don't work that person forever. Maybe they help you build out your systems and your operations and your business. And then you can continue to work with them, maybe loosely long-term. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. But for me, that would be a really strong piece of recommendation is humble yourself, have a white belt mentality, take also a good inventory of what you're strong at, what you're weak at, and then go find guides or coaches or resources that can help you shore up those weaknesses.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because, I've been doing this a long time, and I've talked to a lot of business people, and one of the bad things about when somebody decides they're going to be an entrepreneur and start their own business is they think they have to know it all and do it all. Delegating is one of the hardest things for them. But one of the hardest things really is for them to admit that they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. That's one of the things. But they also, I tell people, if you're not a tax attorney, you're not going to know how to set up your taxes. You're not going to know how to, you need a business law, all of those various things. And so we talk about that a lot on this program, is you absolutely have to build those teams. But I think we also try and think we don't need a coach, because that's going to show that we're weak. And of course, the opposite is what's true. You're making a commitment to bettering things when you get a coach or coaches.
Ooh, this is amazing. I'm going to tell you a little story.
Hey, for Friday, we're just going good.
Let's go. Well, it's so true. And I think it comes down to human nature. I think it comes down to the vulnerability, and no one wants to be vulnerable, right? I mean, it's a tough spot to be in, but that's actually where true strength is. And you mentioned earlier in the conversation, and I was more speaking more to the fitness perspective, but you also said, even like, for someone, wants drinking alcohol. For me, I'm a recovering alcoholic. And, I knew in my heart of hearts, I stopped drinking about 6.5 years ago at the end of 2016. One of the best decisions of my life. And I'm so grateful for the decision, but also, to your point, the support of a 12-step group. And I remember, Deb, I mean, you went through a very challenging, very dark time, not only for me, but also of someone in my family who this disease also affected. And I was just like in turmoil, right? And I had like pride, I believe, when I look back in hindsight, that I just couldn't ask for help.
Right.
But eventually the situation got too great, and I had a deep look in the mirror, and I realized, I could try to be the champion and try to carry all this weight, but I know that's not long-term sustainable. Or I can swallow my pride, take a white melt mentality, humble myself and be vulnerable, and put my hand up and ask for help. And when I did that, it changed my life. I was able to get the support of people who, a mentor and a team of mentors who have been where I want to go, who have years, decades, multiple decades of sobriety, and they've guided me along that path. But to your point, to kind of bring this full circle, it started, and it wasn't always like this at all, being, very candid with you, but it started with, having that surrender white belt mentality, being vulnerable to ask for help. And that's another great message that I just want to reinforce, that a lot of entrepreneurs need to do, especially in areas that they're not overly competent in.
Right. Well, and find what works for you. Along those same lines, for some people, a 12-step is just not going to work, and so they need something else. And so the key is to find what works for you. Now, you can't just go from thing to thing to thing, and it's like we said, there are no quick fixes. Nobody's going to wave the magic wand and go poof, you're all better. But you need to find what is going to work for you. And same thing with business. I mean, I think we can have great friends, and we do, that give business advice, and you kind of mentioned that, but they're not the people who are giving you the right business advice.
Amen to that. And the thought that comes to my mind, I love my mother dearly. She's given me so much guidance in, interpersonal relationships and communication, just how to lead a strong life. So grateful for that. She's also given me business advice, and she's not overly strong at business. So I've had to realize and have to have an understanding that, hey, Mom, I love you for all the amazing person you are and what you've taught me in this area. But for this business advice, I'm going to look elsewhere, and that's no fault to you. And that's just
and sometimes it's just a matter of saying, thank you so much. I truly appreciate your support. And then you go on,
and then you move on. And then you move on.
Right. And it is so interesting. You do have to, like with all of it, you have to reach that stage where you're ready to accept it. I've been in business myself for over 20 years, and only recently, within a little over a year, got a business coach. And I joined, it's actually, someone that I met through C-Suite Network. And it's this wonderful woman, Kathleen Caldwell. And I became part of what she calls the Women's Success Accelerator. See, it's as hard to say as your business. And she just a wonderful program and all of this. But I remember one of the times, and she knows my history. She is also a friend. And we were Zooming one time, and we were talking about LinkedIn. That was, what we were discussing. And I was going to be the LinkedIn guru and that stuff. And she said, that's great. We can do that. But And then she wagged her finger at me. And she said, you haven't gone through everything you have gone through without using it to help others. And what she meant in that was in 2015, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And if it could go wrong, it did. It was just kind of one of those things. And so her point was that we needed, I needed to use what I had gone through to help others. And so we've actually set up a whole new mission, vision, all of those things. But one of the biggest things that I learned out of all of it was I could not do it alone. I do marketing and branding for business. That's what people pay me to do. But I knew that if I was going to do my own website and my own branding, it was never going to get done. I just would put it off, right? Mm-hmm. And so I hired it done. And I didn't hire it done from somebody that it was going to be cheap, because that was the other thing. If I was going to commit to it, I needed to commit enough that I would think, ouch. And that, that comes back to, a lot of this. If it's easy, then it's also easy to stop doing it. And so we launched this initiative, and it's been great. And hopefully we're helping a lot of people. But yeah, I had to be at that point where when she wagged her finger at me, I paid attention to her. And I think that's what all of this is about. We have to be to that point where we're ready to say, teach me.
Amen. Well, there's a few things that soar my mind. To your point, there's a famous adage, when the student is ready, the master appears,
right?
Which is so valuable. The other thing about coaching that I just learned and picked up, what really resonated with you said, was having a pair of outside unemotional eyes. Because let's face it, we're emotional beings. So we get emotional about ourselves, our own lives, our businesses, and that's just part of human nature. So having that outside sounding board. And the last thing that you said to me, Deb, that just really resonated about, feeling the pinch or the pain of making a bigger investment than you probably wanted to. Something I learned along the way is people who pay attention. Right. And there's something magical about making an investment that you, of course, research and calculate. But when you make that investment, you create an energy change and transfer. And chances are it will increase the probability that you stay committed and you get the desired result.
Right. And that, I think, is one of the important things with a franchise. And I'm not going to ask you numbers, and I'm really not going to ask you numbers because those change, and our content has to be evergreen. But clearly somebody who wants to become part of Fit Body Boot Camp, they don't go into it for free. They're going, as you said, you had scraped together every bit of savings that you had. And so, kind of walk us through this process. How do you help people along their entrepreneurial path?
Oh, it's incredible. And I'll be happy to divulge. I can't actually share just the Federal Trade Commission limits what I can share in terms of projected franchise partner earnings, if you will, but I'm happy to share any investment costs. But, typically speaking, our brick and mortar business, for in the grand scheme of things is a very attractive investment to, get a business off the ground, specifically in the fitness industry, because we have functional equipment. So we're not a big box. We don't have a ton of rent in our modality. We also don't have big machines and equipment. We typically have things like kettlebells and dumbbells and battling rope, all functional in nature. So because of that, the investment, is very attractive and reasonable for a brick and mortar location. Typically speaking, when someone enters the, discovery process, they put an expression of interest, which is really an application. So that way we can learn more about them, what their goals are, make sure they qualify, a variety of checkpoints. And then they get assigned to one of our business advisors to kind of walk them through the process. So as you would imagine, making a business to, invest, 7-year commitment, isn't something that people do, very quickly. So they take a little time.
They don't do that with their marriages.
There you go. Exactly. So, it's a good thing that, you provide some diligence and space there. So there's a process, and usually takes anywhere from 2 to 4 months when someone first put their expressive interest to kind of go through the process to make sure all the checkpoints, and we vet each other out, make sure it's a good fit for the franchise partner. It's a good fit for us. And then assuming that it is, then their last point of the application is to get on a conversation with me, a Zoom like we're just having right now, just to make sure I can set the expectations and the vision and, do a little checking there. And then from there, if it's a mutual fit and both of us are a green light, then there's a buy-in that the new franchise partner pays our headquarters that reserves the territory, creates all the websites and all the digital assets, the marketing programs to kind of get your business off the ground, and also provides provides the onboarding training, which we call on-site experience, which is a 4-day interactive training. So that typical process, once they're awarded a franchise, typically takes anywhere from 6 to 9 months. There's a lot of factors at play. But the nice thing is we've done this hundreds of times over the last decade. And we're very proud to have announced and created a system last year in 2022 called the 100-member guarantee. And what that means is we guarantee that all our new franchise partners from day one will open their doors at their grand opening with 100 paying members, or we'll run their marketing until we do. And we've done this so many times that we're really good at that. And because of that, we've been able to impact a lot of people, change a lot of lives, and add a lot of value to our franchise partners across the board.
Right. And I'm imagining that there's, because this is a fairly lengthy process, there's a lot of due diligence that's done, not just with the people, but, with locations too. I mean, you don't see McDonald's building across the street from McDonald's. Now you might see them obviously building across the street from Wendy's, but yeah, there's, you're not going to have a gym right across the street from another gym. Usually, and so, or more importantly, you're not going to have two of the same type of gyms close together. I mean, you might be across the street from, so you don't want your own brand competing against, and so, all of that. And, it really is. And that's where I think so many times when people are trying to do it on their own, they don't look at those things. They might go, hey, that's a cool building and it's for rent, and they don't really look to realize what's nearby, and just all the things that you've learned through trial and error. What's the access to it? I mean, all of those various things, and so I love that it's not a quick process, and somebody really is making the commitment, as you said, that they're going to go through it. Do you find that most of them were members before and went, "Oh, hey, this is so cool. I want to do this"?
That is interesting that you bring that up. So we have many actually franchise partners that have been members of our locations, and it happened organically through the years, just from the success of our locations, and then being able to provide an awesome culture and environment. Also, community and relationships is a really strong foundation for our program as well. In addition to, we like to say our tagline is we give our clients twice the result in half the time. And we say that because we do 30-minute sessions, which 30 minutes for a workout is incredible. Don't let that fool you. It's a challenging workout at that.
Right. But you're not just going with the dumbbell.
You're moving, throughout that whole time. So I think that's really, important to note as well. That all said, Deb, as we were just kind of engaging, I forgot the root of your question. Remind me and I'll finish it off for us.
That you do all of this due diligence. And so that, people, they are truly committed to being part of this. Oh, but I had asked, how many people were members before they, before
that was
they
the follow. That was the follow-up question. So it happened organically just for all the reasons I just discussed. But then last year we were looking at the data and we're like, this is really interesting. We've had dozens and dozens of clients who've experienced the program wanting to open their own location. So now this past year, the last 12 months, we've put a couple different very specific marketing initiatives at play, including we have a July 7th Discovery Day that we've mailed out to all of our members brand wide for those who are interested in opening their own locations. And in the grand scheme of things, we have tens of thousands of clients, nearly 100,000 across the board. So in the grand scheme of things, it's a small percentage, but it's been able to produce, awesome franchise partners because they already have a trusted organization. They know the culture, they know the expectation of our values. So from that perspective, those owners who join our brand, that process is much less just because they already have the know, like, and trust factor within our brand already established. But that's really interesting that you bring that up because that's just a very new specific initiative that we've organically had success with. Now we're making a proactive initiative this past 12 months.
Well, and I'm guessing that you probably will find, if you haven't already, other people, really, I can do that? It had never entered their minds that, they may have known it was a franchise, maybe you'd hope so. But they might have thought it was a standalone business, and so then when they, I could do this myself. That's where, and that's where then when they have seen it and enjoyed it and all of those things, then they know I can replicate this, because they're not going to say, I want to do something I hate.
Totally. But you are a marketing mind. I can certainly see that already. But to your point, and what you said was, sometimes they don't even know can they even do this. So to your point, while we say, and this is a great message in terms or lesson in terms of marketing, even though we have the same product and service, the marketing messages, it can be very different. And what I mean by that is when we're attacking our marketing channels, specifically looking for entrepreneurs and people with a business mindset, we can be a bit more direct. Hey, this is our business model. This is the opportunity, and then give them straight facts and kind of guide them through the process there. But in the situation that you just presented, the same product and service, the outcome is the same, but the messaging is very different. It's not as direct, but it's,
have you ever
considered? Have you ever considered? So we are speaking the same language.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny because I think it is something that people, they know, well, hey, I could own a McDonald's, but there are so many other things that I think, maybe people don't know that McDonald's are franchises. They think, they're all a company, and technically they are all a company, but everyone is independently owned and operated. I shouldn't say that, because I think McDonald's also has ones that are McDonald's, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. So there's corporate, and then there's but usually the corporate ones are ones that they've taken over. It had an issue or something, and so they did that. But yeah, I think so many times people never even realize that the opportunity is there. That's what I was trying to get to.
There you go. Well, when we didn't, very candidly, Deb, we didn't do a good job of communicating that opportunity directly. Also with the messaging that we just referred to, a few moments ago. But now we've kind of had that realization. That was a big learning lesson for us. And even this year, we're shooting this, what is it, the third week of June or fourth week of June. We've awarded 5 locations or new territories to clients within our brand that were just inspired. And we have a few others in the hopper. So our goal this year is to award 15 locations to clients within Fit Body Bootcamp brand. And that way they can go out, and their first transformation is their fitness transformation, similar to me actually. And their second transformation is the business opportunity transformation.
Right. Well, oh my gosh, we only have a couple minutes left. So if somebody is interested, tell us more about that. How do they find you, and what is part of that process?
Well, thank you so much, Deb. First and foremost, I have a podcast called the Fitness CEO Podcast, and we talk about health and fitness, but a lot of the concepts is talk about mindset and personal growth and different business aspects. So Fitness CEO would be a great way you can find me from a podcast perspective. That way I can continue to add value.
Great.
The other way, 2 other spots would be our website, fitbodybootcamp.com. That's fitbodybootcamp.com, which has all the information more geared towards our global clientele, but there also is a section on the franchise partner opportunity. And then lastly, from a social media perspective, would love to connect with you and stay in touch with you and your audience. You can find me at all the major platforms from Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Real Bryce Henson, not to be confused with Fake Bryce Henson. So that's where you can find me, Deb.
I love it. Well, this has been so much fun. And I think it's something that so many people, they want to be a business owner. They want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't want a lot of the hassles that go along with it. And so, owning a franchise is kind of that perfect midway point for them.
Yeah, it's a great hybrid option. And, I'm a fanatical fan just because I love what we do. I love the industry that we're in. And it certainly, worked well with me and my family. My brother opened, a location. He's been one of our most successful owners. So it's a great opportunity, again, to be in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Right. I love it. Well, again, tell us how people find you.
Fitness CEO is the podcast. And again, Real Bryce Henson, all my social media. So that is where you can find me. And I'm more than happy to stay connected and continue to add value from a content perspective.
Perfect. I love it. Well, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave us with?
Deb, this conversation has been so amazing. I'm going to leave you with the final thought and tagline, which I always say in my podcast. And I say with love because I want you and your audience to continue to win. And my tagline, my final message is, no one is coming to save you. You must save yourself. And my friend, the time is now. So that is my final message, Deb. I really appreciate you. And this has been a joy.
This has been so much fun, and we have to do it again because we had so much fun, and I hope that people learn from it. So that's the important thing. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun having this conversation with Bryce Henson, the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.